Hey Carl, it's Anthony here from the Casting Shadows podcast. Just checking in, trying to catch up with posts all over the internet to try and leave comments where and when I can. I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. I especially enjoyed the shout out to Kevin Madison's Dungeon Musings Media Empire. I got a real belly laugh from me, and it is awesome what he's doing. So thanks for drawing attention to that and for making it all the way through. That's awesome. I've been enjoying checking out your podcasts when I can. I haven't heard the solo one yet, but hearing the beginning of this episode mentioning your solo episode, that's where I'm going next. Anyway, take care.
Hey, Anthony, thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, it was a really fun exercise to do. Thank you to you guys for setting it up. And we'll continue to listen to Casting Shadows. It was really fun to listen to through the course of RPG a Day, and I look forward to continuing to listen in the future. And we'll do this again next year, right?
Hey, Carl, you did a great job with RPG a Day. You really dove into it with enthusiasm and reacted to the curveballs we threw you with all the phone calls. Great job, great session recaps. Got nothing but praise for you, my friend. I look forward to what you do in the future with podcasting. And, maybe I'll get to talk to you again soon. Sorry I missed that last game of Twilight 2000. Unfortunately, the real world reared its head. But it'll be interesting the next session, because that T-72 is faster and tougher than that M113 APC that the players have. In fact, the M113 really doesn't have a chance since, as a 50 cal, not a toe on there. So we'll see what happens. Take care. Hey, Carl. I do have an alibi fire for some of your last couple RPG days. I think playing in a bunch of systems is interesting and neat, but honestly, I think there are negatives too. We find ourselves using the wrong names for things in systems, or we ask, does this game do this? No. Oh, that was this other game. And it's easy to confuse the systems when you're running them together. This is especially true with systems that have similar mechanics. I don't know. These days, I almost wonder, so I think we looked at, it was something like 7, I play in 7 different games every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I'm in 7 different games, and I almost wonder if that's not too many, to be honest. I wonder about cutting that back. But there was something else for system I wanted to comment on. When you're comparing Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing, 2nd edition, 4th edition, you almost make it sound like 4th edition's the kiddie version of 2nd edition. Comments?
Hey, Jason, thank you for the encouragement and the kind words. I'm going to try to continue to do different contents, play with types of formats, maybe get some cool intro and outro music or art that I've commissioned, and we'll see what the future holds for the GMologist. But that was mean, you saying that Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition is a kiddie game. It's actually equally as deadly. I think it cleans up a lot of things. Warhammer 2nd edition has some flaws and some incongruities, so I don't know if that's the adult game or not, unless you mean, I don't know, it's not the adult game. It is an incarnation of a game that has gone through various changes. If you want to play the adult game, it might be the one that's like a board game, which is Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition, and it has all the fiddly bits like the board games that adults usually play. But Warhammer Fantasy, like I said, is just as deadly, especially with the success level mechanic, where you can gain advantage after advantage after advantage until you can one-shot someone or get one-shotted if you have a series of losing exchanges during combat. So also the winds of magic are still just as crazy in the new system as they are in the old system. So I don't think it's the kiddie game by any means, in my opinion. And I do like playing multiple games. I just do. It just makes it more exciting, and I don't care if we mess up the terminology here and there, that it's recon or perception or stealth or spot hidden or awareness or I don't know, whatever the fuck they want to call it this week in whatever game. And they only do that so they're not the same as the other game when we all know it's all perception, right? So why don't they just call it perception? And I'll just keep calling it perception or awareness if if it comes to my mind first. Who cares? It's just fun playing different games. It's fun playing, testing these systems out and exploring the various universes that we do in these games. So, yeah, I guess you put up with it since you still play my games. Maybe we should cut down on games because I'm counting how many games that I'm running and playing, but we'll see. I mean, it just depends, right? It depends on, there's definitely games we want to keep going, especially like the long-term campaigns, but maybe we can drop things here and there or just make them one-shotty or one adventure-y. So to me, that's just an ongoing hangout that we just hang out and drink our adult beverage and play a game, and it doesn't matter who runs. I like the Thursday bi-weekly Audio Dungeon Discord group. So, for example, and the DCC group could be the same. In the morning, we could go back to Saturday morning cartoon. I run an adventure, you an adventure, and if it's a long-term campaign, then we run different adventures for the long-term campaign and rotate them. That would be ideal to me. It's fun to have a set time and a set group, and it doesn't matter what we play. And it can be different systems. Wow, let's try this again. Last night, I ran a session of our ongoing Warhammer Fantasy 4th Edition campaign, The Enemy Within. Specifically, we're running Enemy in the Shadows. It was called in 1st Edition Shadows of Verbogenhofen. So there are two phases, there are two parts to this game. The first part, in a way, this is a side quest. The players have made friends with Primus von Bilthofen, who is the son of Leopold von Bilthofen, and he is somewhat of a dandy. His father has even though there's progenitor in the world, his father has looked over him for becoming an heir. So he's more of a book learner. He likes to dress in fine clothes. He has a female valet. But he wants to impress his father, like most sons, I guess. So because he's like kind of tall and lanky, he seems to have the body type of an elf, and his valet saw one of the player characters who's an elven knight walking around with another of the player characters, Reginald, who is not an envoy. He is some sort of functionary who deals with nobility. I can't remember the exact career. She saw them a few days ago in Schaffenfest, and said, "Wow, that looks like my lord." So she invites them to meet the Primus. They hit it off. He says, "Hey, do you want to go in the joust for me?" So we've been building up this idea that the Elven Knight's going to joust in the stead of Primus von Bilthofen, and they went to him the night before after they're fighting their investigation. They told him kind of what's going on and what they found, and he said, "Well, we can't really tackle." The night before the joust, maybe feeling that the screws of this shadow organization, the Ordo Septenarius, made up of some prominent merchant families in the town of Bogenhofen, are trying to frame them for murder or whatever. They decided not to stay at the inn where they were at in order to also avoid trouble, because it looked like a bunch of men from the Stevedores Guild, who they later have learned are kind of not in league, but are paid well by the Merchants Guild to do dirty work. They decided not to cause more trouble, and they headed back to their pavilions at Schaffenfest to stay with the Duke's household. So they're having this interview with Primus. He says, "Well, I'm just me," but if something comes of it, you have my backing, and I can be your patron, but it'd be good for us to make some points with my dear old dad. So we started the session with that kind of interview. They did really well. They presented their case very well. Made a great roll. I think it was a critical roll, which gives so Primus says, "Yes, I believe you. I'll support you as best I can. Hey, here's the armory if you need to grab anything." They grab mainly. I mean, he had promised the Elven Knight the trappings of the next level in the career already if he had performed well in the joust, or performed in the joust. I mean, Primus wasn't. He was expected to be unhorsed in the first pass and laughed at. So he got this Elven Knight to go in instead. Anyway, so he opens up the armory. They take. They're pretty good. They didn't take anything super fancy. Just some leathers and some livery of the von Bilthofen family. And they took bows as well. So the Elven Knight doesn't have any compunction using bows. He is an elf. So they just stay there at the pavilion. The next day we do the joust, and the player does very well, better than I had expected. I kind of gave him 4 rounds of jousting against different opponents, and he won by points in the first joust. We did a 3-pass joust. As I kind of made this up as I went along. There's no rules for jousting that I could find, but I looked online, and there is like a point system from the 14th century that I implemented, and when we added up all the points with the players in the gallery kind of shouting his name and encouragement and making sure the judges got all the points, the character won by points the first time around. Broken lances and all that kind of cool stuff. The second one, he unhorsed his opponent. I think this was the one. I think he knocked his opponent unconscious. He just nailed him really hard. Rolled a critical. I think this is the one where he crumpled. Yeah, I think this was the one where he crumpled his opponent's hand into the shield, and the guy just kind of fell off his horse unconscious. The third round, so he's made it through 2 rounds, and people are like freaking out. After this round, seeing him win once, the Duke is like, well, I guess I'm impressed. Seeing him win twice, he's like, something's up. So he runs. He's going to run. It looks like he's going to go to the pavilion and find all this out. So Primus is watching in the crowd, dressed as like a peasant or something. The players encouraged him to do that, but then when they see his father going to go check on him, everyone runs to the pavilion where he's there. His valet runs there too. One of the players kind of tries to intervene and try to get an audience with the Duke, and does enough to, one, not get run through by the halberdiers that are escorting the Grand Duke, but also stall enough that at least they're able to unstrap and get the armor off the elf and start pretending to put it back on to Primus, and the elf sort of pretends to be like a groomsman tending to the horses. So they commit some good subterfuge. Primus is a book learner. He is good at talking. He throws some veiled insults at his father, but it works really well. They persuade the Duke that yes, this is Primus doing this, and to add some flavor, when Primus leaves, they have to tell him, well, we're going to have to make sure that you look all beaten up and bruised, Primus, because the Elven Knight was beaten up and bruised at this time, getting some healing from the valet and others of the players in between joust bouts. So the villager turned boatsman turned brawler, he's like, yes, I get to beat up on a noble. So he smacks his Primus's legs to mirror the bruises that the Elven Knight has taken from the joust, etc. They dirty him up, but Primus is cool with this. He's his end goal is to make his father proud of him, right, and make his father think that he is not just a scholar and book learner that he is, but also a warrior, right? So round 3, the Elven Knight does well again, and I'm rolling well, but not well enough to unhorse said knight, or enough when I do damage enough to So what I did is I ruled that to get knocked down, you have to take at least half your total wounds in a pass, and then you have to roll your ride check to see if you remain on horse, and I do that for both parties. But if you do enough damage to knock the person out, you're charging it with the lance. It has a quality called impact, which makes it pretty substantial in damage, and it does strength plus a d6 of damage to mirror that of the horse that you're riding. So pretty nasty. I mean, although they're wearing plate armor, so that mitigates some of the damage, it still hurts, and it's all it's all blunt damage, but it still can knock you out, right? So the third pass, he doesn't knock his opponent out, he knocks him down, or he does enough damage to potentially unhorse. I roll a critical failure on my horsemanship, so the guy kind of falls over, gets caught in the stirrup, his leg gets caught in the stirrup, and he's dragged around for a while, but pretty crazy. So he's in the final round, and he's fighting like what I call like the champion from last year. The brother of the Duke of Spottenheim, where Bogenhofen, the duchy that Bogenhofen is located. So this guy, I probably give him I think I give him a base like 70, 75 skill in his riding and horsemanship, compared to maybe a 55 or 60 for the player. So we go through some passes. The player again almost gets unhorsed, but remains steady and steadfast. I think he definitely used one of his meta currencies to reroll during the course of this joust. And then he nails this guy, hits him in the head with a critical, almost, sends him head over heels from the horse and wins the tournament. But then is smart enough to rush back into the pavilion and switch places again with the Duke's son. So, and the Duke, citing, doesn't want to risk his friend who's all beat up, his new friends is all beat up, goes outside and cites precedent that the winner of the joust can refrain from participating in the grand melee so that others may have glory that day. So it was pretty cool. They did continue their investigations. They found out some more interesting rumors. They also found that the consequences of their thievery in the night has caused the brothers to come to blows publicly, one accusing the other of stealing money from them. They kind of circulate this rumor of one brother, since they found a letter that he didn't like his brother and was jealous. So they're kind of feeding the flames of that, and this kind of might hinder or disrupt or cause in their mind, the Ordo Septenarius to make some mistakes. So they do some other legwork, and what I think I like about this adventure is that there are various ways you can get to find what you need to find, depending on the strengths of the players. And these players they're not the kind of, one of them is like a bookish, learny type, but the other ones, they hit the pavement, and they question the beggars and villagers in the town. One of them, who has become he had a revelation in the Temple of Shalia, is now helping at the soup kitchen, and he learns that beggars are going missing in another part of town. So then at night, while the chaos moon is low in the sky and shedding its sickly green light onto the town, which is definitely odd, and they know something is building to something nefarious. They go to this location where the beggars are going missing from, and there's a series of warehouses, 58 of them, but they have some leads on the family, and each warehouse has a number and the family crest. So the families that are part of this Ordo Septenarius, they home in on those crests, and they find a potential location where things look like they've been moved around. but that might have to wait for the next day. Not wanting to stay outside all night and get that bathe in that corrupting Morsleb light, they retire back across out of the city back to Schaffenfest and the pavilions of the Duke, armed and armored and ready to go, maybe resting so that they'll be ready to go armed and armored to disrupt whatever foul plans the Ordo Septenarius has. So it was a good session. Again, the highlight was the Joust. It was pretty cool to see that come to fruition. Honestly, I don't know if Primus von Bilthofen has another role in the saga. Hopefully, they're all like, "Oh, I bet she's going to turn into like a chaos guy or something like that." They're kind of concerned about betrayal and all that. That's one of the themes in the campaign is things do not always look as they seem, and then betrayal is a big one. So they're hoping that this guy doesn't betray them, or succumb to chaos down the road, or is part of chaos already, right? They don't know. But hey, they got a patron. They have someone who can arm them. The Schaffenfest is going to be over the next day, and all these people are leaving. But Primus said definitely look him up, and if you need to, because these are powerful merchants in the city, and if things go south and you need to flee the city, you can have refuge in Karlberg. So they have a quote-unquote safe house somewhere in the country. We'll see how it goes. But thank you for listening. That is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.